Welcome to the Side Chat Podcast. This week we will be talking about free-to-plays, which is an idea that Cobey had earlier this week. Before we get into that, I want to mention real quick that we have a question and answer session that will be going on next weekend. I know that War Thunder just released its 1.43 patch preview. If you have any questions for us on that or anything about War Thunder past, present, future, airplanes, history, or just anything you want to know in general, anything you've ever wondered while watching our channel, feel free to send those questions over. There'll be a comment underneath this topic asking for those, so go ahead and submit them, and we'll be answering them next week. So when it comes to free-to-play games, I've played more than a handful of them. Kobe's been along with me for that, and then Shadow, who's here, has played some of the other ones that we have never played. So hopefully he'll fill in the gaps there. If I misspeak about your game that you played in the past, I'm sorry. There's literally 1,000 of these things out there now, and
Damn many of them.
There's not enough time in the day to, I did the research I could, but holy crap. So, I'm sorry if I misspeak about something you're dear, and, if you have stories below, I'd love to hear them as well. So, let's start with the basic definition of free-to-play, and then we'll get into the revenue of it. Then we'll share some of the stories, good and bad that we've had, and then kind of the future of this business. So, first thing, free-to-play is defined by giving players access to a large majority of the content without paying for it. Which is...
Large majority. Not the whole thing, but a large majority
of it. So you could theoretically play the entire game without ever spending $1. And for the most part, it seems like devs are fine with it, but they just want you to take forever to do it.
Yeah, it seems like they make it just over grindy on purpose, so that you just spend hours playing the game.
You either spend the hours playing it, or you buy your progression increase bonuses,
like War Thunder.
And then you wanna look cool with your friends you play with, or you want other people to admire how badass you are on the internet. You buy cosmetic items, or if you want to have an advantage over people. And this is where the term free to play comes in. You buy enchantments. Or you buy premium currency so you can buy premium in-game items. So, nothing's like a free-to-play when you see in-game currency, premium currency, and everything that you might fucking want is, of course, on that premium currency tab. And they want to get you with that, it's like at a grocery store as you're walking out the door, they put the fucking big bag of peanut M&Ms there for $1.
Impulse
buying, and that's what they're trying to do with free to play, right? You see that, and you're like,
Fry's Electronics. That's full of impulse buying.
So
you actually have to walk through a maze to get to the damn cash register.
Real quick, one thing I want to say is in the future, while I was doing my research, I came across a couple articles talking about EA when it comes to Dungeon Keepers 2. I might do in the near future a EA podcast, but I don't know if my blood pressure and stress, and if I might get Tourette syndrome from talking about EA for an hour. But one of the things that EA has done is, I don't know if how many of you followed, game came out called Dungeon Keepers 2, which had a huge following from Dungeon Keepers 1, and they butchered that game to hell because that's what EA does. And one of the things they did from what I was reading is they put in a ton of in-game ads. So you're playing this game, and then they put, Mountain Dew and, fucking Snickers commercials all over the fucking game. And then they also put where it's like, hey, buy this progression increase. But they didn't put a percentage, evidently, on the description or anywhere on it. So you're like, I don't know how much this progression increase is, but hey, I have to buy it. And you didn't know if it was 5% or 50%.
Or 1%.
UK is now, evidently, some UK Board of Ethics Commission thing is now suing EA to, stop this type of thing, and hopefully this becomes a law over time, and these free-to-plays have to be more upfront by what you're actually buying, instead of just trying to sell you, magic beans. Now, saying that, let's get into the revenue of it, the business side, and then we'll talk about actual games and all that nonsense. We'll have a lot of ridiculous stories for you. Revenue for free-to-play games basically works by trying to get as many accounts as possible. It's kind of like dragging a big fishing net across the lake. The bigger the net, the more fish you're going to catch. And they don't expect everybody to pay. And when I was actually doing my research, I saw that anywhere from 0.5% to 2 to 3% of the actual population ever spends $1 on their game.
Gotta be higher than that.
That's it. That is it. 2 to 3% is the average number that people spend. I know that could be for other games. I don't think that necessarily transcribes to War Thunder, but if you look at League of Legends, how many people have, I have the number here. There's over 28 million League of Legends accounts right now.
Active accounts or just accounts, period?
Active accounts. Their active accounts are 50... I'm sorry. That's wrong. 280 million? Shit.
Lots of zeros. Regardless what it is, it's lots of damn zeros.
Maybe somebody can Google that for me, because my other monitor just crashed here, and I had all those numbers up on the other screen. They have 58.5 million monthly players. I know that. And I might forgot a zero. It might be 28 million to 280 million. I don't know if one of you guys can Google that for me. League of Legends accounts. Forbes or somebody printed an article with that number on there for a few months ago. Anyway, so they're looking for that number because I don't want to misspeak about that. But anyway, basic premise is, millions of accounts.
27 million.
All right, 27. That's wrong because they have 58.5 million active players.
67 million players play the game every month.
Okay.
And 27 play it daily, with concurrent players peaking at 7.5 million.
And to compare that to World of Tanks, which a lot of you are familiar with, that World of Tanks has 9.1 million monthly players. So we're going to get into that in a minute, what that means and all, but you can see when you have that many players in a game, you have to make your game for as wide of audience as possible, and that's why a lot of these games kind of lack any type of realism. Strategy, they try to boil it down to anybody from 4 years old to 90-year-old, 4 to 90 can play this game, because they have to have the biggest audience ever. And I feel that's one thing that a lot of people who play War Thunder came in initially is like, oh, this is going to be a, aerial combat game, but it's been watered down a lot, which is what some people like because it's easier to play. It's that hard part of making a good free-to-play game.
I think they had grand ambitions, but realized that they just couldn't do it.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's a business. You can understand when they put that free-to-play tag on a game, you're going to sacrifice a lot of the actual game.
Yeah, of course.
So that's all I want to say there. So you can never play a free-to-play game and go, this is the best game ever. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think that your Half-Life 2s and your other gyms that were $40 or $60 out of the box will always be considered better, air quotation marks, games than anything built on the free-to-play model.
Yeah.
Because Half-Life 2 was built for a, certain crowd. If they had to make Half-Life 2 for, let's say, 100 million players, it'd be horrible, right? I know you and I probably wouldn't like it. Not the Half-Life 2 that we got, anyway.
Yeah.
But I'll digress from that point. So, if you average out, this is what I found interesting. If you average out how many average players these games have per month, I actually have some numbers. And the average World of Tanks, if you take all the accounts and then split the revenue across, you'll get $4.51 per user for World of Tanks.
Over how long?
Over in this case,
over the lifetime of the game?
No, every month.
Okay.
So that's 9.1 million players, and they get $4.51 per player.
So they're making $43 million a game, a month.
Those numbers, I'm sure, fluctuate like hell too. So I'm just going off data. Somebody data mined this data. I can't personally speak for this data. This is I don't know. Some of these numbers look really funky and weird to me, so I'm not going to.
I can't imagine them making that much money off of a game per month. That's ridiculous.
Call it a year then? It has to be a year.
Yeah, it's got to be a year.
9.1 monthly users. All right, hold on. Wait. So that's the problem with fucking data mining, right? Making an ass of myself here. I'll read you the quote here. Average, just says average revenue per user. Doesn't say what the time frame is. So let's go under the assumption this is a year, because there's no way in hell.
Okay.
We're in the wrong business if they're making that a month.
Yeah.
TF2, $4.36. Right? Guild Wars 2, $3.88. War Thunder makes $3.26 a user. Planet Side 2, $2.86. Dota 2, $1.54. And League of Legends, $1.32. And you're like, well, League of Legends is one of the most successful free-to-play games ever. But there's a difference of they have almost 10 times more players than everybody else.
Yeah, it's all perspective.
And so it's a bigger net. And so it's hard to explain. Now, I was reading from somebody on Reddit who he wouldn't say what company, but he said he was a accounts manager for a big free-to-play game. And I believe this shit when I see it. One of them said, he goes, this is how it works. He goes, there'll be people calling and they'll be like, and they have whales, and they actually have their whales highlighted. So when the whale calls, they know who they're dealing with. And they will, under no circumstances, give those people any leniency for free stuff because they know you're going to buy it anyway. It's kind of douchey. But they said that they'll have a lot of accounts for over... it's probably all of them. They had accounts over $1,000. They had accounts over $20,000. And then they even had one guy who spent $150,000 on their game. $150,000 on a free-to-play.
Wow.
How? I'm going to assume that's like Dota 2 or League of Legends. I don't know, but it has to be League of Legends, if I had to guess, you know. That's the only game I know about people being net addicted, or Guild Wars.
That's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Anyway, so... And I believe they're out there. I honestly do. They say the average person... it's really easy to go from, let's say, spending $20 onto a game to $1,200 without knowing it. You know,
I believe it. I believe it.
Slippery slope.
From my own experience, you know, you spend a lot more on a free-to-play game than you do just buying a game from Steam or buying a game on Amazon. Substantially more.
Yeah, so basically, we'll get down to breaking down the game. So Cobey and I played a game where it was kind of like all of our friends played it. Like, it was a huge thing we played as a community. About, 15, 20 people played it. And they would release, new content every month or so. And you're like, well, I got to have this because that person has it. Or I want to have it first. And so you're like, oh, what the hell is $10 here, $15 here? Well, I just keep playing the game. And then before you know it, over 2 years, you're like, I've been paying them $25 a month to play this stupid fucking thing.
Yeah.
And that's how they get you. And I don't have any problem with supporting a good game like that. If, and that's why I don't necessarily hate subscription models for, like, let's say World of Warcraft, because it's worked for them, and they haven't don't know this, so I don't play World of Warcraft, but to my knowledge, they haven't microtransaction the shit out of their players. It's just the DLCs that come out every so often. But I'm not.
Plus the monthly fee, right? Isn't there?
But that's what I mean. Instead of a free-to-play microtransaction hell, they have that monthly fee, and sometimes paying that monthly fee is, I think, better than buying fucking.
Well, if they continually develop the game, then it's totally worth it. If it's just
right, and the problem with free-to-play is that you have my fear of free-to-play is, and we've seen this. The free-to-play will come out with hype, they make X amount of dollars, and then they stop support. They'll keep the servers up, but they just disappear. And you're like, well, I was paying you guys for future development, but they don't care about that. They started this. I believe that all free to plays are built for one reason: to make money. And they're just just going to make a game good enough to make you A, buy enough stuff, and then B, keep the interest up. And then once they see the decline, once the accounts go, all right, we're not going to make any more money on this cow, put her out the pasture.
Yeah.
And that's sad, anyway, so, all right, let's get to some games. I've rambled on enough, but that's how I see the free-to-play world through my eyes. And it could be a little cynical, but at this point, it's hard not to be. All right, next page of my notes here, because I don't want to mess this up. So... free-to-play games is hard to explain because a large majority of them are actually on your mobile phones and iPads and tablets and whatnot. And so you'll see anytime you go on you go to like the Android market and you go to the free apps. Every one of those fucking apps has either microtransactions or they're filled with ads.
Ads, and more ads. I purposely do not participate in a lot of those things that have ads. I actually just go for sometimes they're called the pro version. I'll just cough up the $4.99 or whatever it is to use the thing without ads.
And that they make so much money. So much money. Candy Crush and all those things. Just it's insanity. And I can't help but think of Francis on YouTube, he's like, "Oh, what? You want more money?" And we just throw money directly at my tablet, glass, because that's basically what you're doing. Oh, I need more energy. I need more energy crystals. What? $5? Deal. Sold. Give me more energy crystals.
Well, they've gotten to a lot, or some people who have played this have gotten into so much trouble because they've racked up thousands and thousands of dollars, like you were mentioning earlier, just on like games that you find on an iPhone.
Yeah, and they charge it charges straight to your iPhone bill, right? So you never actually type a credit card number in there. Is that correct, or?
You find it later. Like you look at your bill and you find that like your kid has spent like $4,000.
Your iPhone bill? You mean like direct to your iTunes account?
No, to AT&T.
Yeah.
Is it iTunes or is it AT&T that goes to?
I can't remember anymore, but it's one of the two. But you don't see it until you're billed.
Right.
That sucks. That's bullshit.
Yeah, so you don't even enter your credit card each time. You're just hitting a button.
Yeah, because the games are tied to your iTunes account.
But
and the Apple Store.
So early on, free-to-plays, the internet basically caused this new sensation. Without the internet, you would not have the free-to-play sensation you have. So free-to-plays did not really exist before the 2000s. In the early days of free-to-plays, South Korea and Russia made up 90% of the population for that market. So we can thank South Korea and Russia for this.
Thanks, damn bastards.
Wait, well, do you know what the first one from like South Korea was or anything?
I forgot the name.
Yeah. Well,
Kimchi Ninja. I don't know. Sorry. If you're Korean, I'm sorry. Making fun
there's the one from in the Western world, RuneScape.
Yeah, let's talk about RuneScape in a minute here.
All right.
So I broke down free-to-play games, and we're gonna start telling some stories here because I know I've been babbling about business side and theories and opinions, all that crap. Well, we'll actually get to some funny stories now. Free-to-play games are broken into three sections in my mind. You have games that came out as intentional free-to-plays built under the free-to-play model. Then you have other games that were games that you took an IP that you owned, right? You have the title Battlefield. This is what EA does. They love doing this. We make Battlefield. We make Battlefield 2. We make Bad Company. Everybody loves their games. Let's make a Battlefield free-to-play and see how many idiots click on that to download because they know, they love Battlefield. Cobey and I have played Battlefield Heroes. Remember that?
Oh yeah, that was bad.
That was horrible, but we didn't know any better because that was what.
Yep. All I remember is the British guy doing that. Yep.
That was like what 2005, 2006. I mean, that was right at the leading edge of free to play.
Yeah.
And we thought we were like, this could be something big, and we tried so hard, and we're like, why do you have to buy fire ammo, or and this and that, and then it was very cartoony. It was you could tell it was made for anybody 8 years old and up, and
yeah, just something to appeal to the masses to get the most revenue possible.
I mean, you could buy cosmetic stuff while
piggybacking on the Battlefield name. That's what a lot of them do, I think. I don't know why they do that.
Yeah, let's go through the titles that I know of offhand that EA has done just for that. And this is another game we'll talk about. So, Battlefield Heroes, and I'll be honest, these are the ones that I played, and I did not spend any money on Battlefield Heroes. Luckily, we had a friend who was a dev for that, and he got us a bunch of free shit, so thank God I didn't spend any money on that. Age of Empires Online, I spent $15 on that. I love Age of Empires, and Age of Empires has died, officially died. And when they took the license and they made a new Age of Empires, air quotations around that, the new Age of Empires, I played it for a while, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna play this for a few hours. I'm gonna buy a Civ, and it was $15. Thank God I never dumped more money into that. But rest in peace, Age of Empires. Age of Empires Online is the fucking bastard red-headed child that it didn't know about running around the internet. And then you have Need for Speed World, and holy fuck, let's talk about this one for a minute because this is, and I'll put video. There'll be video running of all these games too on the YouTube channel. Cobey and I got into Need for Speed World at like late beta, I think, right when it came out. And something to explain about Need for Speed. I loved Need for Speed growing up as a child. That was one of the first games I played. Need for Speed 2. That was before I didn't own a console as a kid, so like Need for Speed split screen was like the best thing to do when you had friends over, and so it's a game that kind of means something to me, when I go back to nostalgic thoughts. And then Need for Speed has sucked ass in the past 10 years. It's been so hit or miss, and mostly miss.
Movie was horrible, by the way, but that's another story.
And Need for Speed World was actually kind of okay when it first launched.
Yeah, it was actually a lot of fun.
And all of our and we have
it was different.
And unfortunately, a lot of the people we play are unemployed and can't afford anything. So Need for Speed was a game that we could all play for once. It wasn't like, hey, who's going to drop $90 on Battlefield 3? Well, 40% of the people we play with can't afford Battlefield 3. So Need for Speed World kind of became our community game, which was kind of cool. And it was okay. And we could race up to 8 players, and there was different things like, escape from cops, and it was enough to keep us around. And all right, Cobey, you want to go with how much money you probably spent in the 2.5 years that we played? How much money do you think you spent on that?
probably close to about $200, maybe. And then I got a bunch of free in-game currency. And then what do they call it? I think they call it Speed Boost. I got a bunch of free stuff from EA for that, for my job.
And I probably...
But yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of money.
And I probably went...
It was substantially more than what I expected to spend on it.
And I probably went between 140 and 165, if I had to guess. I was below you, I know. But looking back at it, we look like assholes. I mean, that game was shit. If you know... I reinstalled it. They dropped that game so fast.
Yeah.
It got big. It got to about, let's say, 5 million players or whatever. And then EA was like, I don't think we can market this anymore without it costing us money.
Yep.
And so the chat hasn't worked now in like 2 years. There's, to my knowledge, been next to no new content. All these game modes they promised, everything's disappeared. The servers are on and there's fucking crickets in that building. At least to my knowledge. So... Screw you, EA. I tell you, screw you. And I know they tried to launch a Command and Conquer's free-to-play online, and they got such horrible feedback. EA finally just hit the delete button on those files.
Really?
Yeah, so there's no Command and Conquer free-to-play.
Didn't even try. Huh?
But another one is MechWarrior Online, and just real quick, MechWarrior Online just announced that they're doing a player council as well, just like War Thunder. So I guess things are going fucking awesome over there too for them.
So is the player council the official white flag and?
I don't know.
Time to start arranging the deck chairs.
I honestly feel that any game that has to have the players tell them what's wrong with their game is in deep shit. And I could do a whole podcast on that, but I don't expect anything personally on the player council. I just think it's a sign of, that the ship is sinking. All right, so let's go to RuneScape, right? Then you had games, and to my knowledge, that came out as pre-built free-to-plays. Now, was RuneScape a subscription game first, or was it always built as a free-to-play?
No, it's always been built as a free-to-play. There is a subscription service which unlocks, I don't know, about a quarter of the map. At least when I stopped playing. I'm sure I just did some research. It's changed so much since I used to play it. It's been around for a really long time. At this point, it's been out for 13 years, and it's had 200 million players.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Really?
It's got the Guinness World Record for largest free-to-play MMO RPG out there. So, in terms of what it offers, there's quest lines. Those, I don't know, there was about 30 of them. There's, like I said, I stopped playing it about 7 years ago, so I'm sure a lot of it's changed since then. But you couldn't access certain areas or use certain items. You couldn't even see them in the free-to-play world. It was very separate.
That's ridiculous.
To my knowledge, this is the game where the term pay to win came from, right?
Kind of. I mean, you would definitely notice if you saw a player with those pay to access stuff was around. There's even certain worlds that the free worlds you could see the stuff but you couldn't get to it. So there were server restrictions. You kind of peer over through a window at the stuff you could get without paying. But the game was still pretty enjoyable without paying for it. I didn't pay for it very long. For most of the time I played it free, and I had lots of fun playing with my friends. I don't know. You never really were. It wasn't like you were forced into paying for it. It was once you were bored with everything that was offered for free, and there was a lot out there, then you could pay if you wanted to. I think that it used to have one of the better models for that. Now it's kind of got those microtransaction stuff everywhere. I think they've been watching what everyone else has been doing, and they can get away with it because they have the player base and the history of being a free-to-play game. So I don't know. It's been very interesting to watch this game as it progresses because it hasn't seemed to slow down at all.
Well, at this point, when you have that many accounts and that many email addresses that you can spam ads to,
Yeah.
so you already
and
did.
you can go to companies and say, hey, look, we have this many people, and
Yeah.
In this money, yeah.
Well, you already have that big a player base. You're like, well, if we lose 5% of it, but if we sell this many red T-shirts, that cost make it, the developer works on a week, and we can make $1 million. We don't talk about a game that's doing that right now. Pisses me off. But, you can make, it's like, well, how much, we can make this many millions if we lose 5% of our community, but we've already made back all the money we did to do all the hard work, so they're gonna, it's like a cow, milk it for every drop of milk,
I mean, they kind of do that now, but they've also listened to their players, so they have the game as it was roughly 7 years ago, with some minor updates that are voted on by the players. So they kind of have their own player council thing going on. Yeah, but I don't know, they pay attention to their player base, and it seems like they definitely don't want to just get the money and run, which I think is nice.
From there we can go to PlanetSide 2, which I tried. Fuck. Alright, I have a good friend of mine. He did the channel art for this channel. That's the banner you see on top of the channel and the stuff you see at the end of videos and, blah, blah. He asked me like 3 or 4 times, play PlanetSide 2 with him. And, that's a game he really wanted, and that's cool. Every time I played that game with him, I literally almost wanted to put my fist through my monitor. It was so rage-inducing. And that's just my opinion of PlanetSide 2. And PlanetSide 2 was like one of those games like, we can show you the world, and the world sucks. I think, and they made a lot of money off that game. One thing, and this is when I talk about PlanetSide 2, that instantly comes to me, it just pissed me off. Free-to-plays have the worst user interface of any fucking games. And do they go to like?
Yeah, they do, because they don't spend any money on it.
Do they go to some expo for bad user interface? They're like, all right, guys, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put 65,000 buttons across the top and 12 on the left. And then
they use the easiest programming they can find because they don't want to drop a dime on it, because they want to make as much money as possible.
And why I say that about PlanetSide 2 is my friend sent me a friend invite to join his squad. It took me fucking 10 minutes sitting there going, is it under this menu? 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 And fucking Cobey brings up a point. You remember War Thunder the first time we tried to hit into battle as a squad? What happened?
I had a little breakdown and my dog ate all my cookies.
He couldn't find the ready button, and I kept screaming, the goddamn ready button is right there, but he couldn't find the ready button, and then we had a little rage. But it seems to be a thing between all these games that they don't know how to fucking do user interfaces. I don't know if that's part of their business model, or are they just don't care.
They just don't care. It's obvious they don't care. They just don't give a shit. They want to make money, and that's
Another
it.
game that comes to mind is Blacklight Retribution. You remember when we played that one? I call that one dubstep the game because I get a fucking headache in the menus.
Oh, that was horrible. I couldn't even get through the damn menus. It was horrible.
I never actually played World of Tanks because the one time Cobey and I tried to play World of Tanks, we got Trojan viruses from wargaming.com.
Yep, both of us. Yep, we were downloading at the same time. Both of us got it.
And I've heard people say that sometimes, free-to-play games come down as false positives, but it actually said Trojan32.Sally.exe, and I'm like, fuck that,
Yeah.
So, and I know that sometimes free-to-plays come down as a false positive because they use a peer-to-peer network to help the patching and, file installation. So sometimes your antivirus will flag that as a virus. That was not the case for Wargaming. They actually had a fucking Trojan virus in their actual game files we downloaded. Anyway.
Yep.
You never tried World of Tanks Shadow?
No. I found War Thunder first. I mean, I'd see the ads on TV, and I thought maybe I'll look at it. But at the same time, I've seen other free-to-play games that have similar commercials, and I wanted nothing to do with them.
No.
And then I heard about World of Tanks, and I tried to install PlanetSide 2 once. It crashed every time I launched it, deleted it, and never looked back.
I'm not saying PlanetSide 2 is the worst game, but I don't like it. But with World of Tanks, I can't play. I know a lot of people ask me on the channel, please play World of Tanks, World of Tanks. I won't do it. Simply because I hear the stories from all the other World of Tanks players when they say, I'm a level 13. And I'm like, is that a big deal? I don't know. And they say, it took me 8 months to get to level 13. It is a big deal, damn it. And I'm like, huh. That's that grindy? I can't. I'm sorry. I'm not, if it's one. I just don't want to grind. Like.
Don't don't forget the fact that they have premium ammunition,
Yeah.
which defeats the purpose of a lot
Really?
of things.
Well,
yes.
yeah, when Wargaming first came, like when Wargaming started World of Tanks, this is from again. I know there's a lot of World of Tanks players, so please, if I fuck this up, please don't bend me over barrel. To my understanding, World of Tanks was a very, very pay-to-win, super grindy, very beyond premium type game where you had to purchase everything, and it was insane. And to my knowledge, they've listened to their players, and the World of Tanks that we have today is not the same World of Tanks from 2.5 years ago. But I know some of that stuff exists, but to my knowledge, they've actually got their shit together.
Oh, that's good.
So,
I know of at least another pay-to-win game that I don't know if you've heard of it. There's a Battlestar Galactica massive multiplayer game, and that one
breaks my heart.
Very much. Well, it's weird. It's kind of like an alternate reality thing, but
that's once again though.
Just Star Trek Online free to play.
Yeah,
as well?
but we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, this game had it'll take months of grinding to get your next big ship, but everywhere you go they offer you to buy the premium currency to buy the next ship, and it's very much pay to win, and it's heartbreaking.
Another game on my list is Firefall. I played a tiny bit of that. I'll fucking play Borderlands 2. Sorry, I spent too much money on Borderlands 2 to, I'm sorry. I know they're not the same game, but I'll play Borderlands 2 before I play fucking Firefall. Heroes and Generals is one that Shadow and I tried on a lovely, I think, Sunday afternoon. And I see a lot of other YouTubers post a lot of videos on this, and I was like, oh, what the hell? Maybe this will be funny, and I'll have some new content for a new game for you guys. And then I deleted the game.
Why?
I've never. It took us, what, like 15 minutes to figure out how to make a squad?
It took us 30, 45 minutes to get into one damn game.
Is Heroes in General, is it like an
World War
RPG?
II first-person shooter.
Oh, really? Okay.
And
it's also got a level system.
But the only thing that made me go, hey, there's bicycles. I'll try it. That's literally all they needed from me. Was like, hey, bikes, I'll try this game.
I think I've seen video of that. I think Robots made a video of that, riding around on a bike.
And Bismarck as well.
Like running over people.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I saw with Bismarck's.
But anyway, so some foreigner. So
damn foreigners.
I've never played a game. It's like Battlefield 4 netcode flying around. Like you can't ever hit anybody. The tanks are ridiculous. And then the pay to win in that game. Like I had another friend, Boevil, he tried to play it. You guys heard him on the channel from time to time. And he sat there playing it like all Saturday, and he goes, where the fuck do I get a gun to kill somebody with? I'm sick of this piece of shit. And I go, it's in the store. And he goes, oh, my credit card. Fuck,
Open up your wallet.
And then once you progress a player to, let's say, a pilot, you will no longer be able to squad with your friends who are either like on the ground, I guess, or in tanks. So you have to restart a new character if you want to play with them on the ground.
And that
costs money.
That's such bullshit.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm not playing that game. I don't want to throw money at that, even if it, not even for YouTube's sake. I'm just, that's another one. I look at these games and I just kind of sigh. I'm like, it's going to be there for 6 months. It'll probably fold, but hey, they made $1.2 million in that 6 months.
They made $11
and we look like,
in 3 weeks.
So fuck them. That's why I sound so cynical when. And I understand that, and the sad part is they make some of these free-to-play games, and I know teenagers, it's hard to buy things as a teenager because you don't have a job, right? And that's, I think, where a lot of free-to-play, players come from is, that younger generation. But fuck kids, the free-to-plays are more goddamn expensive to play than, anything else I bought, any other AAA title I've ever spent money on. And it's just like one of those things like, hey, little boy, I had some candy, get in my van. And before you know it, you're paying for that fucking candy. So, it's rape. Anyway. All right, moving on.
Can we talk a second about the people that tend to play free-to-play games?
Yes.
Like the Brazilians?
No.
And the Russians?
We can't say that, though, because it's every country. I'm sure you'll find a huge split from, you'll get War Thunder, there's literally a player from every probably corner of the world playing that game.
That's not a bad thing.
Well, no, it's not a bad thing at all, but there seems to be problems with certain...
All right, guys, here's...
certain
we'll talk about that. We'll
communities.
talk about this, but please, let's keep it civil. All right, Cobey? Civil?
Oh, I'm fine.
All
That's
right,
cool.
all right. The reason where this comes from is that when we played Need for Speed World, there would always be some guy with a Brazilian flag on the top of his car or the side of the car or across the entire car, and they were 99% of the time you saw the Brazilian flag and then you were checked into a wall as hard as you could.
Yep.
And they were infamous for ramming in a racing game, and that was their...
And I'm starting to see the same in War Thunder now. Now that there's country flags in War Thunder, whenever I see an airplane with a Brazilian flag, the guy either flies into the ground or is being douchey or is doing all sorts of other stuff that is not helping the team out.
Like when you got team killed that one time?
Yes, exactly.
And I hate generalizing, but it's hard to sit there and say you're wrong when I've been there right there with you seeing all this evidence, and I don't want to do a big study on players from each country. But that's one thing I kind of miss, and I'm nothing against, like I said, TBLF has Italians, Polish, I played with a Swedish guy in the live stream today.
We don't discriminate.
We don't discriminate, but sometimes I just want to play on a U.S. server with U.S. players.
Yeah.
I just do. For the sake of languages, I can't speak Russian. I don't type Russian. I'm sorry, I don't know what... When 80% of my team is Russian, I don't know what the fuck they're saying to me. I just see, Bo, and then wiggly lines across my screen. I'm like, I don't know. Are they yelling at me? Are they saying, good job, high five? Are they fans? I don't know. Are they going to kill me? Are they robbing my bank account? I don't know what the fuck they're doing. And please, like, if War Thunder wants to fix this, put a simple translator in the game, like Russian to English, and then other games have that. But anyway, so sometimes I just want the same language on my screen when I play a game as a team.
Or put more servers in. Put a server in South America. Put a server in, well, there already is a Russia server. Just do it. No, you can. It's obvious where your player bases are.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, they tried to put the South East Asia server, and for the longest time, there's been like 2 people sitting there, calmly waiting, and.
Where is this server? Is it in Australia?
I have no idea where that thing is.
It might be in Asia, but
probably Hong Kong if I had to guess.
Singapore or somewhere, yeah.
But that's just another thing, and let's talk about War Thunder real quick. And it's something hard. And for me, I've learned to curb my expectations for War Thunder a lot over the past 6-7 months, simply because I have to keep reminding myself it is a free to play, and they did promise a lot of content, between arcade, realistic battles, and simulation, but in the end, it is a free to play. And I'm not trying to defend that at all. I'm just saying, as us as players who love military history and love aviation history, it's a free to play game. Unfortunately, we're not we're not playing Jane's Combat Simulator or anything, trying to reach every piece of history. And the thing that drew us to War Thunder a little bit was them going for historical accuracy, but at some point that's going to give way for the masses, Not every player who logs into War Thunder is going to want to read a 15-page dissertation on the Battle of Ruhr. But,
I do.
Well, I know you do, and I do too, but, but 80% of the population who plays this game casually won't. And
well, you can kind of see the change over towards favoring the arcade players with all the premium planes that are getting released.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the future, but and that's just what's kind of heartbreaking is that we spend a lot of time in some of these free to plays, and it's hard to just sit there and really remember it's just a free to play. At its heart, it's just a free to play. And I wish it wasn't wish I wasn't discriminating against the game so hard, but the free-to-plays before it, the 1,000 other of them have kind of, put coffins in the ones that are out there right now trying to survive. Because there's very few, you can probably count on your hand how many have been successful. RuneScape, Dota 2, TF2, League of Legends.
But TF2 wasn't originally free to play.
But I'm saying those are the success stories. Now, you can probably count them on, your hands. The ones that have disappeared and won't even be footnotes in history are in the thousands. So, all right. So the other type of game, which is a new trend that started, I've noticed about last year, so about 2 years we'll call it now, which has disturbed the fuck out of me, is where these companies release, and usually this is MMOs, because MMOs, everybody's trying to copy World of Warcraft success and Guild Wars success and EverQuest success. They will release a MMO, right? And then they go, holy shit, we sucked. Our release was bad. We're not getting the monthly subscriptions we need to keep it open. And then between 2 to 6 months, typically they go, hey, this is now free to play, and come on in, right? So it was a failed AAA launch, and then now it's a free to play, right? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not, though. In TF2's case, they just decided to go free to play to make more money off of it. Won't be that mean, but in other cases, like you have EverQuest, which was out forever, that they just made free to play. Age of Conan was out there forever, that went free to play because their subscription player base was dying down, so they got new ones. I don't have so much of a problem with that because those games were out for sometimes years before they went free to play. Defiance, I think, was out 15 minutes before it went free to play. Lord of the Rings Online is just another game that just bombed and went free to play. DC Universe was out for about six and a half minutes before it went free to play. And Star Trek Online was out 32 seconds before it went free to play.
Little longer than that.
It was within.
It was more like, it was like, I don't know, 8 months.
That's
maybe.
Still nothing. That's still nothing. That's not even 2 patches. No,
it went free to play very fast. And it's, I don't know, the game's got some issues since the last time I played it. After it got bought by Cryptic, got bought by a Chinese gaming company. Can't remember the name of it. But the thing is filled with so many microtransactions now, like you were talking about earlier. I mean, there's like, last time I checked, there were 3-4 different kinds of currency now. And I don't know. It's unfortunate because I bought it when it was coming out, and I don't know. I guess it never really lived up to expectations. After all of the issues that game went through, I think it changed developers at least once.
Knights of the Old Republic is another one you could throw in that mess or in that bracket. That game looked phenomenal from the cinematics and how much work they put into it, and that game was supposed to be basically the next WoW, and then within a year that was free to play.
Or a replacement for Star Wars Galaxies.
Yeah, and that's pretty much bombed on its face. And I don't like that trend of, oh, we failed, but let's try to, and I know it's a product and they put all the work in. They're like, well, we got to milk this baby for all we can. And that's what I feel like they're doing. When you have a failed product, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. I guess we'll call it this way, right? You make a car, the car bombed in the U.S., and then you ship them all over to some third world country, slap a new badge on it, and try to resell it there. That's what I feel like they're trying to do with those games. And you know what? I don't really respect it.
It's unfortunate that we've seen more than one case within the last 4 years.
Trend. It's basically, like I said, I named off like 10 of them there. It's a trend. I hope this trend doesn't continue.
It will.
Well, of course.
As long as they can make money off of it, they will.
So if you're still listening, and I know I've been personally pretty cynical, and I know these guys are pretty much, but same thing. I'll talk about this in a minute. We'll do some defense, I guess, of free to play. I'm personally sick of free to play. I still play with War Thunder though, because War Thunder's basically, there are World War II dogfighting games that are kind of hard to find. That are decent.
It's unique.
And yeah, and War Thunder's unique, and I really liked War Thunder for what it is. So War Thunder bought me with their kind of pitch of what it could be, right? And that's why I stick around War Thunder. But for the future, it's if I'm ever gonna play a free to play again in my life, it has to be something different, unique, and really do something that pushes game development like War Thunder tried to do. I'll give War Thunder credit there, even though it's in a horrible state of dismay right now. And I really hope it can recover, because I would like to actually play this game for a year or 2 more years, or depending, whatever I would like to see this game go on 5 years if it can. I don't know if I'll be playing it for 5 years. You can never tell the future, but I would like to see this game around for another half decade if it can do it. Right now, it doesn't look too good in its chapter of history, but it's neither did World of Tanks. Anyway, I know, Shadow, you play quite a few hours of Warframe every week, and if you want to touch on that,
yeah. I think it's a great game. It is very much free to play. There is a premium currency, but they allow you to trade items between players and earn it from other people. So you can totally play that game without ever spending money on it, with a little effort. There's 2 types of boosters, and those are for the standard currency, and then resources. Another thing I really like about it is the fact that the developers are very much engaged with the community. There's regular patches for it, so they haven't just let it go. They continue to upgrade it and listen to the player feedback, which I think is great. And while you can still play while they're hot fixing it, and the developers actually communicate through this. They call it red text. For obvious reasons, it's red. But the developers, parody things or mention interesting, funny things that they think the players would find entertaining and incorporate that. So it's nice when the developers actually are a part of the community, especially for a game like that. I also haven't seen another game that's similar to it. It's unique. Space Ninjas.
And like I said, I won't bash Warframe because I played it one time and it didn't do anything special for me, but I know it's been pretty widely received as popular, so I'm not going to sit here and condemn all free-to-plays to hell, because, I won't do that for War Thunder yet, I won't do that for World of Tanks, and I won't do that for Warframe. And I know, one of other Unchurn's really popular right now, and I can't, these things are like weather, they change so fast, but from my personal experiences, and I'll talk about me and I'll let Cobey and Shadow wrap up. For me, for the future, free-to-play is, unfortunately, I think it's going to stay around, especially if they're going to keep League of Legends and Dota 2 keep making the money that they're making. It's going to be really hard for developers and their offices going, why can't we do that, right? And they're going to keep coming out with different ones and and this and that, and it's really easy to start up a free-to-play, release it early, and see how much interest there is before you commit to a project. I understand all that. Fortunately, I'm, as of right now, at least burnt out on the free plays, and I want nothing to do with them. Everything from making accounts, figuring out the user interface, trying to avoid the microtransactions and the grind, and and then trusting that there's going to be updates that are good, and then hope that they're going to support the game for more than 6 months to a year. I'm personally just, and that's why I'm so cynical when I talked about this. And I hate to be an asshole, because the problem with, the way that free-to-play games get a lot of people is it's like, let's say, hey, I download this game. And I go, yo, Cobey, download Loadout. And you're going to say, well, I don't have it. I'm going to be like, well, it's free. Fucking get it. Don't be an ass, And then, boom, there's another player, right? Because it's free. There's nothing to say, there's no reason for you not to play it because it's free. And that's how they keep getting more and more players. And unfortunately, now I'm at the point where I'm going to be the asshole when people say, hey, play Unchurned. I'm going to be like, sorry, no. I'm just done with free-to-plays, They're, it's free. That's cool. Good for them. I'm not going to dedicate the time to it.
Market saturation.
And
it seems like a lot of free-to-play games, and not War Thunder, and not Need for Speed World for the time we played it. A lot of free-to-play games are just cop-outs. It's like they develop a game, and then they realize halfway through development that it just doesn't meet their expectations, so let's make it free-to-play. Let's just stop what we're doing, and then just see what happens. It seems like there's just a lot of cop-outs, you know what I mean?
It feels like that. Like, they start with something really good, somewhat polished, and then everything else is hammered out in coding. Yep. I guess, I don't know, where do you stand on... You're probably not as cynical as Cobey and I, Shadow, because, you weren't around for Battlefield Heroes, but I know, what do you have to... I guess, what do you see as the future of free-to-play?
I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon.
No, they're not. They're absolutely here to stay.
Yeah, I think to some extent there will always be a market for them. I've seen cases where there are good and bad. Good ones like Warframe and Path of Exile, which you don't see too much of, but it's quite entertaining. It's like a better form of Diablo. At least that's what I've heard and experienced. So there are notable successes that are not bad, I guess, but there's also the far more numerous ones that kind of put a bad taste in everybody's mouth. So I think there's, as annoying as it is, there does have to be some sort of player research into a game.
Right, and the main thing I think a lot of people jump into free play is they know nothing about it, right? Real quick, the thing I'll end with, and then I'll have a little announcement, and then we'll be done here. The thing that always disturbs me about video game companies, and I know people always say, game companies don't owe you shit, right? And unfortunately, number one thing, especially when I see it around War Thunder, hang around War Thunder community a lot, and people go, why should I buy this premium plane? Well, support the game. And I see that happen with a lot of games. Just buy that so you support the game. Fortunately,
you don't have to buy everything.
But yeah, but just support it. Just buy something and support the game, right? And if you don't like the game, don't support it, blah, blah, right? Well, unfortunately, if you don't buy something, you're going to be fucking playing for another 20 hours to get to the next level. If you had your premium count and your premium typhoon, you would have had your next level in 30 minutes, but since you didn't, it's going to take you 5 hours. And I'm sorry, your time is worth your money, 4.5 hours to some people, especially if you work 40, 60 hours a week, is worth a lot to you. And some people have to, if they want to play this game, have to buy something, and they know that. So you're not going to, so these games will always get money, so I don't believe that, buying something to support them or buying something not to support them is ever going to make big enough difference unless you get somehow 4.1 million, monthly users a month to not buy something. But you always have people buying stuff, you'll never be able to sway, I think, a community that big to boycott the game for, a month. Saying that, though, my problem, this is always something that stirs me, and maybe we'll do a later podcast of this if there's enough interest, is broken promises with game companies, right? Like, if I buy this helmet for this game, which cost me $5, what guarantee do I have that you just don't take $4.50 of that, put it straight into your kid's dental, braces, and then I never hear from you again, and you just drop all support, right? Because you're basically, especially with early free-to-plays, you're paying for the future development of the game, but there's zero guarantee what that is.
Yeah, there's no support.
And
yep.
And then in a case, and that's what scares me, especially with early access, and so on, is that I personally think that, gamers are your customers. They're the ones who are going to keep you in business for 5 minutes or 5 years or 50 years. And I don't understand why game companies don't do a better job of trying to be more open, I guess,
Yeah, just communication is horrible.
And especially if,
it really is horrible.
They gotta treat their customers well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel free to play.
It all comes down to communication. I mean, if they were to say, hey, it's been a good ride, but we're not supporting this game anymore, I'd still play it. I don't know. It just the lack of communication is what kills me.
I guess we'll end here. I guess what I feel like is that the free-to-play community is treated like sheep and not customers, right? And they know, that's just how I feel. You're not looked at as people's faces. You're looked at as a number on a page, right? The accountants are looking at you. How much, wool is that sheep going to give up this month? That's how I feel, and that's why I'm so cynical. Like I said, next week there is the question and answer session. If you're still here listening to this, I know we'll be kind of mumbling and ranting. But I thought this was important. So question and answers, leave those below, and then we'll be back to talking about probably aircraft in 2 weeks after that, or a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how 1.43 works out. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thank you for Cobey and Shadow being here today.
Yep, of course. Happy to help.
We'll catch you guys later. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.